My childhood sweetheart despised me for being blind. She rejected my confession publicly in front of everyone. At the moment when I was at my most humiliated, Liu Ryan stepped forward without hesitation, willing to give up everything to be with me. She helped me piece together the dignity I had lost bit by bit. In the 6th year of our marriage, Liu Ryan persuaded me, after much coaxing and cajoling, to agree to let a former impoverished student I had sponsored come to our home as a way to repay their debt of gratitude. Foolishly, I thought, she merely wanted an extra pair of hands around the house to take better care of me. But by chance, I overheard her conversation with that student. Liu Ryan, don't tell me you've fallen for that blind man. How could that ever happen? If it hadn't been for raising money to help you, I would never have married him. What bad luck it's been. It was only then that I realized she had secretly replaced all my medication with vitamins long ago. No wonder my eyes had never shown any improvement. It turned out that everything was just to make it easier for the two of them to carry on their affair under my roof, without being noticed. 6 years of a relationship built on deception could no longer be concealed. I simply signed over the house donation agreement and orchestrated a staged death. I disappeared without a trace. Who could have imagined that later I would hear they were scouring the world for me, just begging me to return? After settling all the accounts, I discreetly contacted my personal assistant. Tio arranged for me to leave in 3 days. By then, I would leave it all behind forever. All I left them with was nothing, no person, no wealth. Thinking this, Liu Ryan suddenly pushed the door open, staring in shock at the silhouette of me sending a message. Shine on, you can see now. She approached me slowly, deliberately making no sound. I instinctively turned around, pretending not to see her. I walked past her toward the door, adjusting my watch. My tone was a little melancholic. No, I want to go to the hospital for another checkup. Why else would there be no signs of improvement? She reached out to help me sit down, poured a few pills from the daily medicine bottle she gave me, and held them to my mouth. The doctor said, "You have to take the medicine consistently for there to be any improvement. You're just too anxious. Let's follow the doctor's orders and not overthink, okay?" I knew she was testing me, so I complained as usual, asking her to feed me, while swallowing with the cup she held for me. I caught her in the corner of my eye, sneakily checking my phone. Thankfully, I had already cleared the messages with my assistant. She found nothing, but I still couldn't understand. Could someone truly be with a person they don't love, all for another man, and even take care of that person meticulously for 6 whole years? Love can be acted out, but could there really be no feelings at all after 6 years? Song Jil was like this. Liu Ryan was the same. When they treated me well, everyone envied me, a blind man who somehow had women who seemed to truly care for him. But now I finally understand. What Liu Ryan truly loved was not me, but my money. Because another impoverished student named Chen Zixuan needed it. Liu Ryan gently wiped the water stains from the corner of my mouth, smiling and comforting me. Good boy. But when Chen Zixuan suddenly appeared at the door without notice, she instinctively tried to block him, only to remember that I couldn't see. She relaxed again. Yet I could read Chen Zixuan's lips. He was desperately eager to move in, so he could openly have an affair with Liu Ryan right under my nose, while living grandly in a luxurious house. As expected, the next moment, Liu Ryan turned to me and asked, "The house needs some help lately. One thing, Chen Zixuan has a good attitude, and he works seriously. Why not officially confirm his position early and let him move in to take care of you?" Take care of me? I couldn't help but mock myself internally. Clearly, he was here to take care of Liu Ryan. All right, then please let Zixuan know, I replied. In the next few days, we'll have to trouble him. Once everything is settled, I have a gift for him. I raised my head and gave her a faint smile. After all, it would only be for a few more days. Seeing me agree, Liu Ryan's smile couldn't be contained. She even suggested taking me to the live match I'd always wanted to attend, but never had the chance. I was a little surprised, but I nodded and agreed. Watching a live match had been my dream for a long time. Unfortunately, I couldn't see before, but things were different now. I wanted to leave. Without regrets, Liu Ryan carefully held onto my arm throughout the way. Perhaps over the years, she might have felt a twinge of compassion in her heart. Just as we arrived at the ticket booth, I saw Chen Zixuan running from a distance, grabbing Liu Ryan's other hand. Liu Ryan frowned and glanced at me, worried I might notice. She quickly pulled out her phone, gesturing to Chen Zixuan to text her. "Why didn't you say you were coming? What if he finds out?" Chen Zixuan replied, "Ryan, you've never watched a match with me before. Don't you want to know what it feels like to kiss at a live match? I even sprayed on your favorite men's cologne before heading out." I glanced at the messages on Liu Ryan's phone as if unintentionally, feeling a pang in my chest. I shook her hand slightly and asked, "Liu Ryan, aren't we there yet?" Liu Ryan cleared her throat, hurriedly put away her phone, and softly reassured me, "Shine on." I dropped my ticket on the way here. "Could you ask the staff to escort you to your seat first? I'll go back and look for it." When the stadium doors closed behind me, I saw with my own eyes Liu Ryan handing over to tickets at another gate and entering the stands beside me with Chen Zixuan. As the match drew to its climax, the entire stadium erupted with excitement. The sight of Liu Ryan and Chen Zixuan kissing appeared on the large screen in front of me. Perhaps the ending had been decided long ago. She had already made her choice, hadn't she? 6 years ago, the memory of Liu Ryan running to me without hesitation when Song Jia rejected me was still vivid. But now, she, like Song Jia, ruthlessly pushed me away. But this time toward another man. I took a cab home by myself. Liu Ryan claimed she had something to handle and never returned. The pitch-black villa felt eerily cold and lonely. On her bedside table, I noticed an unsealed gift box that hadn't been there before. Inside was a string of prayer beads, seemingly blessed. A faint scent of incense still lingered on them. I remembered the abbot from Yingshan Temple blessing me. He said, "The young lady accompanying you personally prayed for these beads for your safety. She fasted for 3 days, kneeling for at least 6 hours each day. It shows that you are a man of fortune. I believe in science, but I also respect gods and Buddha. Due to my impaired vision, my other senses have always been sharper than most. To resist the darkness and the psychological fear that comes with it, I gradually developed the habit of falling asleep to the scent of incense, especially the fragrance of temple incense. It always gave me peace of mind." Liu Ryan knew this well. Every rainy season, she would take me to stay near Yingshan Temple for a while. She even promised to pray at every temple across Yuguo for me, so that once my vision was restored, I could see her face and forever remember it in my heart. But why was the Liu Ryan I saw after my vision returned so different from the one in my memory? How could she want me to remain in eternal darkness? The notification sound on my phone showed, "Tomorrow is your birthday." My heart stirred slightly. Could this string of prayer beads be for me? She still remembered. The sound of the door opening echoed. Liu Ryan saw that I was asleep and picked up the prayer beads from the bedside. Right in front of me, she placed them around Chen Zixuan's wrist. Her eyes were filled with deep affection. She didn't even notice me groping to get up. It wasn't until I accidentally knocked over a glass of water that Liu Ryan instinctively withdrew her hand. She caught sight of me about to swing my legs off the bed. Her gaze quickly darted to the broken shards on the floor, and she strode over, shouting angrily, "Don't move!" I froze. The next second, She yanked me back into bed. If something's wrong, call me. The floor is covered with glass shards. Do you still want your feet? You just love causing trouble every single day. I stayed silent. Liu Ryan realized she had misspoken and tried to make amends. Shine on. I didn't mean it that way. I'm just so scared of you getting hurt. I spoke out of urgency, that's all. I understand. I smiled faintly. But I knew. Those were Liu Ryan's true feelings. Words spoken instinctively are often the thoughts that linger most in one's mind. As she went to fetch gloves, I caught Chen Zixuan's glance directed at me. His eyes were filled with hatred. He clenched the prayer beads on his wrist tightly, then suddenly used his foot to push the sharpest shard of glass to where my feet could reach. Brother, shine on. I've cleaned up all the shards. Didn't you want to get down? Let me help you. As he spoke, he tried to pull me down. I frowned, pushed him away, and said, no need. Liu Ryan will take care of it. I want to sleep. But he wasn't planning to let me go. His expression suddenly darkened, completely different from the humble young man I had once sponsored. He actually reached out and grabbed me forcefully. Brother, shine on. Don't act recklessly. Liu Ryan will worry if you get hurt. Let go. What exactly are you trying to do? I desperately leaned back. But I underestimated Chen Zixuan's ambition and malice. He clearly intended to make me bleed. Shine on. Liu Ryan's voice grew nearer. Chen Zixuan gave me a cryptic smile, let out a loud cry, and suddenly released his grip, falling to the ground himself. In an instant, the metallic smell of blood filled the air. A large pool of blood spread from Chen Zixuan's hand. He lay on the floor, his face twisted in pain as he tried to endure it. Liu Ryan rushed in, only to see this scene. Her anxious cries carried a faint undertone of suppressed anger. Zixuan! My mind went blank. My dazed eyes fixed on Liu Ryan as she hurriedly helped Chen Zixuan up and led him outside. I didn't even notice the blood from my wrist soaking into the bedding. Liu Ryan suddenly paused in her steps. The chill in her voice shattered my last shred of hope. She turned her gaze to me, her eyes filled with disdain. If you know you can't see, then don't make trouble for others. Now, Zixuan was trying to help you out of kindness, and you still pushed him. What kind of intention is that? I didn't. Chen Zixuan interrupted me with a low voice. Brother, shine on. I was just trying to help. You move away the shards. But as soon as Liu Ryan left, you wanted to get out of bed. I couldn't stop you no matter what. I don't even know what you're dissatisfied with about me. To resort to such cruelty. Liu Ryan's frown deepened. Gu, shine on. I thought you couldn't see. But at least you had a kind heart. I abruptly lifted my gaze until she said, if I had known you were this kind of person, I would never have chosen you after you were dumped. I picked you because I pitied you. What bad luck. I suddenly wanted to laugh. Was it out of pity for me? Or was it because of my money? The Liu Ryan of those days seemed so humble, so genuine in her affection. Now, she's just as hypocritical and fake. She married me for Chen Zixuan's sake. Enduring 6 whole years, not only did she feel no remorse, but she even painted herself as noble, to make me look despicable in comparison. After Liu Ryan helped Chen Zixuan out the door, I messaged my assistant to come and help me bandage my wounds. As I watched the shards of glass being extracted from my flesh piece by piece, I felt numb, completely devoid of any sensation. My assistant was indignant on my behalf. Shine on! The arrangements for your staged death are all set. From now on, live for yourself. I curled the corners of my lips into a faint smile, taking a walk around the villa. This house had been left to me by my parents before they passed away. Even I never thought the day would come when I would leave it. Till the next evening, when I quietly ordered myself a birthday cake. I sat at the table for a long time, long enough to reflect on the first 20-something years of my life. It was nothing more than a well-orchestrated joke. The doorbell suddenly rang. I thought it was Liu Ryan. But when I opened the door, the face I saw was one I had nearly forgotten. Beautiful enough to dazzle, yet no longer carrying the youthful innocence of the past. Now it exuded a mature charm. Songjia! Before I could react, she shamelessly squeezed through the crack in the door. Her sharp eyes swept across the room, finally landing on the lonely birthday cake. She sneered. What? Did Liu Ryan dump you? She casually blew out the nearly burnt-out candle. After rejecting my confession, she left the country. In 6 years, apart from sending me a series of mocking voice messages on my wedding day, she never contacted me again. Perhaps sensing my unwelcome attitude, Songjia arrogantly pulled out a ring and held it in front of me. The moment our eyes met, there was a flicker of surprise in her gaze. You can see now, I frowned, as the words she once said to me echoed vividly in my mind. A blind man like you should already be grateful that I even played along with you for this long. You really think I'd marry you? Look at yourself. It all felt as fresh as if it had happened yesterday. What do you want? She quickly resumed her haughty demeanor, nodding with a smile that reeked of superiority. Here's the deal. I'll give you a chance. It just so happens I need a partner. How about marrying into my family? I almost thought I misheard her. My frown deepened. Unable to understand what game she was playing this time, the Songjia in my memory always seemed filled with arrogance. In truth, once she set her sights on something, she would commit fully. That was the part of her that drew me in, but I never truly understood her. When it came to emotions, she could treat me kindly on one hand, while hurling cruel words at me on the other, just because she found it entertaining. Perhaps this was the concealed cruelty of some wealthy young ladies. I accepted it. I gave up. Seeing my lack of response, she took it upon herself to move closer. When her hand touched my wrist, wrapped in thick bandages, Songjia's expression noticeably shifted, though her lips still carried a smile. There was an unmistakable chill beneath it. Where did you get this injury? I tried to pull my wrist away from her warm palm, but her grip tightened just enough to make the pain stop me from resisting further. Let me guess, she said. You're not saying anything, so it must be Liu Ryan. I was at the match yesterday too. Do you know what I saw? Liu Ryan and Chen Zixuan. They had the audacity to do that kind of thing right in front of you. And yet, you still won't give up on her? Why not just be with me? I coldly interrupted her. This has nothing to do with you. Songjia suddenly erupted in anger, gritting her teeth and letting out a furious laugh. So you insist on being Liu Ryan's lapdog, even to the point where she cheats on you, and you act like nothing happened? Gu Shainan, don't tell me you think this will somehow make Liu Ryan soften toward you. I smirked. Of course not. I'm well aware of how foolish it is, because I never intended to make her soften. I only wanted her and all of them to end up with nothing. But there was no need for me to explain any of this to someone who had abandoned me before. I calmly looked at Songjia and gestured for her to leave. Yet Songjia became unusually agitated, saying things I couldn't quite understand. Why was it the same back then? And now as well? Then what am I to you? Did you really never love me? Not even a bit? These words lingered in my mind even after the door closed behind her. I couldn't quite grasp their meaning. If I had never loved her, why would I have confessed to her? It was she who gave up on me. Now I had my own life. Why was she suddenly questioning whether I loved her? What did she want? Was I just a toy she could kick away when she wanted and pick back up when she pleased? In the early morning hours, the sound of the door opening echoed in the foyer. Liu Ryan returned with Chen Zixuan, only to see the untouched cake on the table. Chen Zixuan feigned annoyance, but his excitement was hard to hide. Ryan, you're so silly. My birthday isn't even today. But since you prepared a cake for me, I'll forgive you full. I stood quietly on the second floor, my gaze fixed on Liu Ryan's frozen face. There wasn't much emotion in my eyes. She instinctively looked up, and when her gaze met mine, her expression was filled with shock, doubt, and a hint of guilt. Ryan, she ignored Chen Zixuan for once, quickening her steps toward me. In no time, she was standing in front of me, her voice slightly breathless, her eyes fixed intently on mine. After a long pause, she hesitated and asked, "Shine on! Can you see now?" Feigning surprise, I turned in her direction. "You're back?" She frowned. She waved her hand in front of my eyes and finally seemed to relax. She tried to explain. About Zixuan. Yesterday, he got hurt by you. Quite badly. I went with him to the hospital, and that's why I forgot it was your birthday. How about I accompany you downstairs to eat the cake now? I can even make you a bowl of longevity noodles. I shook my head. If you're hungry, go eat by yourself. There's no need to trouble yourself. She thought I was angry. She circled in front of me, as if trying to find a crack in my composure. "Shine on! We were both upset yesterday. In that situation, I couldn't just leave him alone. I did it all for you after all. Besides, you didn't remind me it was your birthday either. I know! Go to sleep!" I quietly stepped aside from her. My voice was so calm it betrayed no emotion. "Goo, shine on! Can't you just listen to my explanation?" Her face darkened. Her voice involuntarily rose. "Even if you blame me for not coming back for your birthday, shouldn't you at least apologize for how badly you hurt him? He's innocent." I sighed softly. "I'm not blaming you, Liu Ryan. I never will, not even for small matters like you taking care of Zixuan. As for apologizing, maybe it's the two of you who owe me an apology." I thought this to myself, but I didn't want to argue with her any further. Just as I was about to leave, she grabbed my arm. The motion made me wince. Hiss! The wound on my wrist split open. Dark red blood seeped through the bandage, gathering and spreading quickly. Liu Ryan's face turned pale. The questioning tone in her voice shifted to rare concern. Was this injury from last night? I closed my eyes briefly, avoiding her gaze. Calmly, I uttered a single word. "Yes." She fell silent. I couldn't tell if it was guilt or something else. Suddenly, she showed concern. "How about I take you to the hospital now? We can't let the wound get infected." After a moment, I shook my head. "You missed the last match. Come with me tomorrow instead. Let's make up for the regret." When we arrived at the ticket booth again, there were many people. A long line had formed, perhaps out of guilt. Liu Ryan helped me sit down to wait. "I'll go up front to check how long it will take. If someone's willing to swap tickets with us, we won't have to wait. Stay here and wait for me." I responded briefly, without looking at her, my gaze landing instead on a chatting young couple nearby, not far away. My assistant's arrangements were already in motion when Liu Ryan returned, glancing at her phone. Her expression showed traces of anxiety. Another WeChat message came through. "Shine on! I wrapped up Zixuan's wound. If anything happens, I'm afraid he'll cause trouble for you. After all, that wound." I lifted my gaze, focusing on her face for the first time. But her mind was elsewhere, and she didn't notice anything unusual. "Go ahead. The line is still long." As soon as I finished speaking, she hurriedly ran off. Actually, I saw it. Chen Zixuan had also come to the venue. He was standing near the entrance. The next moment, Chen Zixuan sent me a voice message. "Ryan, you're so good to me. Little glutton. What other snacks do you want? I'll buy them all for you." "Then I want them all. I'll take care of you for the rest of your life." At the end of the voice message, the shopkeeper's envious voice could be heard in the background. These young couples nowadays are really enviable. After hearing that, I silently walked past them from behind, heading straight out of the stadium. The sounds of cheering and laughter grew fainter and fainter. A plain, unmarked van slowly stopped in front of me. Before being pulled into the van, I sent one final message. "Block. Turn off the phone. Remove the SIM card." I informed my assistant to handle everything after the house was sold. Close all accounts. The remaining assets, including joint property, had already been converted into financial insurance. My private account had been transferred to my assistant years ago, under my parents' name. From now on, no one would ever know of Gu Shainan again except him. The van avoided all surveillance cameras, switching vehicles twice en route, just like my life. The year my parents passed away in a car accident, I lost my sight in an explosion. Songjia was the first to find me, protecting me, and telling me not to give up. When I began to rely on her completely, she then told me it was all a game. Later, Liu Ryan appeared. Her meticulous care gave me the courage to try again. But the arrival of Chen Zixuan completely broke me. On the other side, Liu Ryan finally saw the message I had sent her. It was a photo of her and Chen Zixuan hugging intimately from behind, as she was about to call and ask me. Another message slowly came in. Liu Ryan, I can see now. Liu Ryan froze. Her hand holding the phone trembled uncontrollably. When she found that the call couldn't go through, she frantically turned around, searching for me in the crowd. Chen Zixuan tried to hold her back, but she forcefully shook him off. Impossible. Without looking back, Liu Ryan ran toward the stadium, her face pale as a sheet. Impossible. Shainan didn't even take his medication. Her mind reeled as she retraced her steps. At the ticket booth, the staff were preparing to close up, mistaking Liu Ryan for a late spectator. One of them kindly said, "Miss, the game's over and the doors are closed." Liu Ryan grabbed the staff member's collar abruptly. "The man who came here with me, where did he go?" "He's blind, wearing a camel-colored coat." The staff member thought for a moment, before cautiously replying, I think I remember seeing him, but he didn't seem like someone who couldn't see. He left shortly after you did, heading in the same direction you went." Hearing this, Liu Ryan visibly panicked. Her expression grew even darker when she turned to Chen Zixuan, whose face had turned cold and grim. "You did this on purpose. You knew Shainan could see, and that's why you got close to me, isn't it?" Chen Zixuan froze. "Shainan can see? Impossible." Realizing something was wrong, he incredulously questioned Liu Ryan. "What do you mean by that? Don't tell me you fell in love with that blind cripple, Shainan, and you're afraid he'll be disappointed in you now? But don't forget why you married him in the first place." Liu Ryan staggered backward, her mind reeling from Chen Zixuan's words, which suddenly made her realize the truth. Perhaps without even noticing, she had already fallen for Shainan. She had just been lying to herself all along. Her marriage to him wasn't solely for money, but she had used that money to support Chen Zixuan, unaware of how her feelings had quietly shifted over time. Even the staff could see through it now. The staff muttered under their breath, "What kind of people are these?" So it turns out they're cheating. No wonder she's afraid her husband might find out. Seeing Liu Ryan's pained expression, unable to utter a word, Chen Zixuan grabbed her shoulders and forced her to look at him. "Liu Ryan, you promised me. You said you'd take care of me for the rest of my life. How could you fall in love with that cripple? Say something." His voice was full of grievance, as if he were the victim. "You can't do this to me. My sister is still lying in that hospital bed. I need you too. You can't just abandon me." Without thinking, Liu Ryan shoved him away. She searched everywhere. Their home, my favorite temples where I stayed briefly, and every possible place I might go. According to footage provided by the stadium's control room, the last place I was seen was outside the venue. After days of fruitless searching, the police concluded I had been abducted. When they went to tell Liu Ryan, who had locked herself in her bedroom, Songjia suddenly barged in. "Liu Ryan." She caught sight of the woman crying in the bedroom. Without warning, she slapped her hard across the face. "This is how you treat Shainan. He's missing, his life or death unknown. And here you are, hiding in your room, crying? I told you back then you didn't deserve to have Shine On. She recounted to Liu Ryan the events of Shine On's birthday, shattering any remaining illusions Liu Ryan clung to. Completely breaking down, Liu Ryan muttered, "He really could see." So you didn't know, did you? You didn't know, yet you still harbored such filthy intentions. Cuddling with Chen Zixuan right in front of him, Songjia let out a cold laugh. No wonder he's so terrified of being abandoned. He would rather blow out the candles alone than call you to join him. I bet you were with Chen Zixuan at that time, weren't you? Liu Ryan's body froze. Her gaze became vacant, and her once delicate frame collapsed onto the ground. Unable to move. It's my fault. I wronged him. She muttered. Just then, someone knocked on the door asking, "Excuse me, is this Mr. Gu Shainan's residence? We're here to take possession of the house." Liu Ryan sprang to her feet, her swollen red eyes filled with desperation as she snatched the donation agreement from the visitor's hands. "This is impossible. The house belonged to his parents. It's where we lived for 6 years. How could he bear to give it away? How could he?" But the handwritten notes on the agreement couldn't lie. She had seen my handwriting before, how I always placed a dot after the final stroke. The force of the dot on the agreement pierced through the paper. At that moment, I must have made an enormous emotional decision. Despite my reluctance, even if I hadn't been abducted, I had already planned to leave. Before leaving, I had made one final arrangement to ensure that she and Chen Zixuan ended up with nothing. Shine On! Do you hate me so much that you didn't even leave a trace of yourself for me? Liu Ryan clutched the agreement tightly to her chest, her voice trembling slightly. "Take possession of the house?" Songjia murmured before her eyes lit up. And she exclaimed excitedly, "Is it possible that Shainan wasn't abducted at all? What if all of this was part of his plan?" Liu Ryan froze. Why didn't I think of that? She turned to the officers. "Officers, please keep looking. Maybe he's just hiding somewhere." At the same time, a police officer received a call. His expression turned grim. After hanging up, he sighed deeply. "Ms. Liu, we've just tracked down the van's whereabouts. We found a blooded shirt inside. Based on witness accounts and evidence comparisons, the item belongs to Mr. Gu Shainan. The vehicle has already crossed the border. I'm afraid things don't look good for him." While they rushed to the police station to identify the clothing, I was settling into a new identity near a quiet mountain temple. The house was small, and my assistant delivered what I needed monthly. From my bedroom window, I could see the lake across the mountain. The temple often received visitors from the village below or tourists offering incense. The faint scent of incense wafted to my house, and I occasionally went to the temple for vegetarian meals. Over time, I became familiar with the young monks there. Seeing them carry dozens of steamed buns out daily, I curiously followed them one day. We walked for over an hour along the mountain path, until we reached a group of children eagerly waiting. They were abandoned due to their disabilities, rescued by the young monks and raised with temple donations. At first, the children were terrified of me, hiding behind the monks to avoid my gaze. I felt like I had finally found the right place. After discussing with the temple abbot, I began visiting daily to teach the children about the outside world, help them accept themselves, and grow alongside them. I also contacted my assistant to recruit a few teachers to provide tailored education for them. The children gradually began to accept us. 6 months later, when my assistant brought supplies, he told me, "Liu Ryan and Songjia haven't given up on looking for you. Someone spotted them near the border. Ignore it," I said as I continued reading the essays the children had submitted. "Just keep an eye on their movements. Over time, they'll naturally give up." The assistant fell silent, but eventually continued explaining. "Songjia and Liu Ryan ran into Chen Zixuan near the villa you donated 6 years ago. Your confession to Songjia and your relationship with Liu Ryan, he was involved in all of it." I paused, motioning for him to continue, my eyes calm and indifferent. as though awaiting an insignificant piece of gossip. We investigated. After receiving your financial aid, Chen Zixuan grew jealous of your close relationship with Song Jie. 6 years ago, he secretly approached her, lying that you were interested in Liu Ryan. He deliberately sowed discord between you and Song Jie. Right before your confession, he sent Song Jie a message. We managed to recover the chat history. Taking the phone, I glanced at it casually. Jie Shinan told me that he got close to you just to provoke Liu Ryan. In a few days, he plans to confess to you, to give Liu Ryan a sense of urgency. I thought long and hard before deciding to tell you this. Even though he's helped me in the past, I can't bear to see you get fooled like this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have peace of mind. Reading to the end, I let out a mocking laugh. To believe such words, it shows she wasn't worth it. Exactly, my assistant agreed with a sigh. Back then, I thought you and Song Jie would end up together. He paused, glanced at me, and then returned to the main topic. Liu Ryan was also part of Chen Zixuan's scheme. He made Song Jie doubt you, leading to her rejection. Once Liu Ryan was with you, everything fell into place for him. Apparently, he pursued Song Jie too. When that failed, he turned his attention to using Liu Ryan as his pawn to get close to you. For 6 years, he lived off the money you funneled to Liu Ryan. But he got used to living extravagantly, blowing money at clubs and other places, and even posing as a young master to latch onto a wealthy woman. When she began to suspect his identity, he sought to move into your villa and continue his deception as your brother. However, after your staged death, his actions were exposed. Judging by Liu Ryan and Song Jie's determination, they won't stop until they find you. My hand, flipping through papers, paused briefly. I sneered. And if they don't stop, so what? I have my own life now. I don't need them anymore. After my assistant left, I sat down with the young monks for a vegetarian meal, overhearing a group of female university students chatting nearby. The latest trending topic. The modern example of going mad for love. Who even has these kinds of relationships? It's all over the internet. Some beauty mobilized so many people and even offered a huge reward just to find her supposedly dead lover. One of the girls sighed, but the next second she was contradicted. Oh, come on. Never let love cloud your brain. Someone dug up the dirt. Turns out this Liu Ryan took her blind husband, Gu Shinan, to a stadium and secretly kissed another man. There's even high-definition photos of it. And the kicker, her blind husband was sitting right there, watching the whole thing. And then there's Song Jie. Gu Shinan confessed to her when he was blind, but instead of just rejecting him, she insulted him for being disabled, saying he didn't deserve her. Their conversation grew more heated, with someone mentioning a dedicated analysis page made about me, Liu Ryan, Song Jie, and Chen Zixuan. It wasn't long before gossip-hungry netizens chimed in. My uncle's younger brother works at the police station. Apparently, this Liu Ryan is super devoted. She goes to the station daily, asking about Gu Shinan's whereabouts. She's visibly worn down after half a year of this. And Song Jie? Apparently, she got into a fight with Liu Ryan. The two were taken to the station to cool off. But I couldn't help finding it all laughable. When I was there, I received no respect or care. Now that I've left as they wished, who are they putting on a show for? As I left, the group remained animated. And when I walked past them, they were still busy taking photos of everything around them with curiosity. In the afternoon, I took the revised essays to the little love-filled shelter. Brother Shinan, a blind boy crossing, touched the wall and rushed toward me when he heard me coming. He was just like I once was, unable to see, but he was born this way. The doctor said his chances of recovery were slim. How did you manage to run out here? I chuckled lightly, but then nervously he asked me a question. Brother Shinan, do people out there dislike us? I froze for a moment. Gently patting his head, I asked, why do you say that? Today, the teacher taught us a story. He said, The main character was blind, too. And he was bullied by a lot of people. I'm scared. I hadn't expected crossing to say something like that. Slowly, I pulled him into my arms. Looking up, I saw all the other children had come out as well, followed by their teacher, who looked at me helplessly. I couldn't help but think back to when I was blind. People's comments were always there. Even those closest to me had said cruel things. In the 4th year of my marriage to Liu Ryan, she once drunkenly complained, "Taking care of a blind man every day is really annoying, especially when he always finds a way to create trouble when there isn't any." After sobering up, she explained, saying it was just something she said after losing a game with her friends, asking me not to take it to heart, even though I chose to believe her. I began to tread carefully in every aspect, afraid of being a burden to her again. Now, as I look back on all those taunts, my heart suddenly feels calm. Yes, I am disabled, but I am not incomplete. Her mockery made me realize that she was the one who was truly broken inside. Because she couldn't face herself, she magnified my flaws to mask her own inner emptiness. With a soft sigh, I smiled in relief, then turned to the children and asked them seriously, "Did the protagonist in the story the teacher told you about succeed in the end?" They thought for a moment, then nodded. That means if they could do it, so can you. Physical imperfection doesn't mean you're incomplete. People have both outer and inner selves. Those who mock you may seem normal, but they're just hiding their own imperfections. Crossing blinked as if half understanding. So does that mean we're braver than they are because we're not hiding anything? I smiled gently. The teacher chimed in suddenly. That's very clever. I thought these beautiful days would last a little longer. But when my assistant came to deliver supplies again, a harsh and angry shout broke the tranquility. "Gu Shainan! So you really didn't die." It had been half a year, and Chen Zixuan looked like he had aged 10 years. His face was gloomy and menacing. Children have an instinct for sensing a person's aura, whether good or bad. Just like when they first met me. Before I had fully let go of my past, I carried a sense of detachment that made them afraid of me. But the moment Chen Zixuan barged in, they immediately hid behind me. Right after him, 2 more people followed into the room, searching for me. The moment he saw me, the exhaustion on his face was quickly replaced by surprise. His gaze was fixed on me, as if afraid I might disappear again. "Shine on!" Liu Ryan couldn't suppress the urge to step forward, but I stopped her with a stern command. "Stop! Everyone, get out. This is not a place for making trouble." I asked the teacher to look after the children and escorted everyone outside, except for Zixuan, who refused to leave no matter what, especially when he noticed the way Liu Ryan and Song Jarin were looking at me, as if they wished they could kill me. "Gu Shainan, you're just a blind fool. What right do you have to compete with me? Why? Why does your mere appearance make them abandon me, one by one?" The assistant informed me Chen Zixuan's identity had been exposed online. The wealthy women he deceived over the years now avoided him like the plague. Those with families were too afraid to say a word. They distanced themselves as much as possible. But within 2 days, another video surfaced. He was beaten by the husbands of those women. Since the bystanders knew he was a habitual seducer, no one stepped in to help. I frowned. Without replying, a crisp voice suddenly interrupted. "My brother Shainan would never. It's just that you're angry because you're afraid people will see how shallow you are." Exactly. Bad uncle. Shallow-minded. Unloved. Without a single path forward, Chen Zixuan's face turned ashen. He charged forward like a madman. "What did you just say? A bunch of brats. Do you believe I won't beat you to death?" Liu Ryan, seeing this, did not defend him like she used to. She spoke up to stop him. "Have you gone mad enough? Are you not embarrassed? Enough already?" Chen Zixuan turned his head in disbelief. Embarrassing me, he suddenly laughed. Liu Ryan, do you think everything you've done is so honorable? Even Gu Shainan doesn't want you anymore, and yet you're still shamelessly clinging to him. You're truly pathetic. I ignored the once affectionate pair, now tearing each other apart in front of me. I felt no emotion, until I noticed another gaze that hadn't shifted since I entered, lingering on me. When I glanced sideways, Song Jaren's tightly wound emotions finally unraveled. Shainan, I interrupted her. I don't think we have anything to talk about. No! Song Jaren anxiously denied it, her voice tinged with desperation. Shainan, it wasn't my intention to reject you back then. I love you. If Chen Zixuan hadn't lied to me, saying you confessed to me only because of Liu Ryan, we'd already be married by now. Is that so? I sneered coldly, but back then I was blind. How could I ever deserve Miss Song? No, Shainan. That was just said in anger. I apologize for the hurtful words I said to you. Please forgive me. I truly love you. At that moment, she lowered her gaze, humbled unlike the Song Jaren I once knew. After you married Liu Ryan, I never stopped following news about you. It wasn't until I saw Liu Ryan betray you that I grabbed the ring I had prepared 6 years ago and rushed to find you. Song Jaren, maybe you do have some affection for me, I said indifferently. But that kind of affection, isn't this so-called affection built on an unequal foundation? No! I didn't give her a chance to speak further. I stepped closer, one deliberate move at a time. Ask yourself sincerely, if you truly loved me, how could a few words from Chen Zixuan sway you? You didn't even come to confirm it with me before believing him. If your love is so fragile, then I should be thankful for your rejection. She was struck silent by my words, unable to respond. She tried to explain, but I no longer paid attention to her. Instead, Liu Ryan, angered by Chen Zixuan, turned to me, seeking answers in my gaze. Shainan, it was wrong of me to lie to you, but can you give me another chance? Don't hate me. And please, don't distance yourself from me like this. She stepped forward, wrapping her arms around my waist. I broke free, but she refused to give up. I admit I had ulterior motives when I chose you in the beginning, but over time, I genuinely fell in love with you. It was Chen Zixuan who tricked me using his sister, saying she needed expensive medical treatment. His sister once saved my life, so I couldn't ignore her plight. That's why I let him manipulate me. I didn't realize others were involved in this, but Chen Zixuan's sister died 6 years ago, so how could she need expensive treatment? When I saw the fleeting guilt on Chen Zixuan's face, I suddenly understood. This scheme had been set in motion not long after I first supported him. Poverty is not terrifying. What's tragic is having a bottomless pit in one's heart that, over time, consumes even the most basic human decency. I stared directly at Chen Zixuan. After a long silence, I sighed. Maybe I shouldn't have helped you. Chen Zixuan laughed maniacally. Exactly. Why did you help me? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have ended up like this. But the desire on his face remained insatiable. He demanded furiously, if you helped me, shouldn't you have helped me all the way? You gave me hope, only to send me back to that bitter life? Why? His words made me question myself. Did I really make a mistake? But I quickly shook my head, speaking calmly. The mistake wasn't in saving you. The mistake was in your greed. You don't deserve my help. That's nonsense. He lashed out like a wounded animal, charging at me hysterically. Liu Ryan and Song Jaren wanted to step in to help, but I didn't give them the chance. I sidestepped and landed a swift punch on his face. Everyone present understood what had happened. Shainan, you! Liu Ryan's lips moved as if to say something. I sneered coldly. Does it hurt to see this? She shook her head, her gaze still fixed on me. Of course not. I'm just afraid you might get hurt. Shainan, I truly regret it. If only you'd come back. I'll do anything you ask. Even the matches. If you like, we can watch them every day. I chuckled softly. Liu Ryan. Something I can accomplish on my own. Why would I need a burden to weigh me down? Her face turned deathly pale. No, shine on. I love you. How could I be a burden? But deep down, you've always despised me for being blind. Liu Ryan. Why force yourself to endure this? And I no longer want to live a life where I'm constantly cared for by others. Tiptoeing around every day, reflecting endlessly on myself because of your one word. Troublesome. I find myself disgusting. Liu Ryan was completely stunned by my words. The panic in her eyes was impossible to hide. Blame me for being like this. It's my fault. I'm the one who wronged you. Shine on. I'll leave as long as you're doing well. When the three of them left, the love cabin regained its former peace. I continued my simple, routine life. But occasionally, I would see two lonely figures in the distance. Whenever they noticed me, they would quickly turn and hide. I paid them no attention, as long as they didn't disturb my current life. Later on, one of the figures disappeared. I heard that Song Jaron gathered evidence and reported Chen Zixuan and Liu Ryan for fraud and marriage scams. The amount involved was enormous. Liu Ryan confessed on the spot. Besides that, other women deceived by Chen Zixuan signed a joint petition against him. Both of them ended up in jail. Years passed. I took the children from the love cabin out of the mountains. Someone anonymously donated a significant sum, providing financial support for their lives and education. But I still guessed who it was. One day, Xing ran up to me, clutching an envelope. Brother, shine on. It's for you. I took it. The familiar handwriting greeted my eyes. Best wishes. I silently mouthed the words. A fleeting wave of emotion passed before I regained my calm. Looking up at the dazzling sunlight, the darkness of the past had faded. A new life was on its way. The end.